Welcome, brothers. In today's video, we will be talking about the order in which each Primarch was discovered. This has always been a point of confusion for the Warhammer community, so I will be basing all my information off of the Warhammer books, specifically those from the Horus Heresy. Without further ado, let's start with the first half of the Primarchs. The first son to be recovered by the Emperor is Alpharius. These are not Alpha Legion shenanigans. I'm basing off my information from Legion written by Dan Abnett, which is the best author in the Black Library. I'm also basing off my information from Praetorian of Dorn written by John French. Alpharius' identity was kept a secret from the other Primarchs, the rest of the Imperium, and even at first from Valdor, because the Emperor and Malkador wanted to be one step ahead from the Chaos Gods. Alpharius landed on Terra. The 20th Legion, also nicknamed the Ghost Legion, until the discovery of Omegon, is the only legion that was developed with the presence of its gene sire. All the other legions were completed in the absence of their Primarchs. The Emperor had to play with the recovered gene seed after the cataclysmic event that sent the pods of the Primarchs in their respective homeworlds. If you have read Alpharius, Head of the Hydra, written by Mike Brooks, you might believe that Alpharius landed on a different planet, but it was actually about Omegon. This was the first point of confusion. We will be using the official Warhammer map to pinpoint the location of each homeworld of the Primarchs. Horus Lupercal is the second point of confusion. He is also the second Primarch that was discovered by the Emperor. If we follow official Imperial records or some unofficial sources on the internet, you might find that Horus was the first Primarch to be recovered, but this wasn't true. It was Alpharius. Horus landed on Chthoniya, which was the closest Primarch homeworld to Terra. He was raised as the Emperor's favorite son. He spent the most time with the Emperor, while Alpharius spent most of his time with Malkador. Horus was the Primarch of the Luna Wolves. The 16th Legion obtained its name after the successful compliance of Luna. The Emperor tasked them with recovering the gene laboratories on the moon. They were later renamed the Sons of Horus after the Great Crusade, and they became the Black Legion after the events of the Great Scouring, when Abaddon took over the Legion. He is the character at the left of Horus. Horus Rising, written by Dan Abnett, is, in my opinion, the best book of the franchise of the Horus Heresy. This is definitely a must read. You will find him in most tier lists, at the top of the entire pile. The third Primarch is the third point of confusion. Yes, one of the earliest Primarchs that have been found is a Primarch that is currently missing. He landed on an unknown planet in an unknown corner of the galaxy. His legion name is unknown. The only thing that we know is that his legions disappeared around the events of the Rangdan Xenocides, which was towards the end of the Great Crusade. His disappearance is linked to the fourth Primarch, which is considered as the Executioner. So Leman Russ landed on Fenrith. It's also a planet that was relatively close to Terra, especially compared to other Primarch homeworlds. The Space Wolves were initially called the Rout. So the 6th Legion is considered as the Emperor's Executioners. They are linked to the disappearance of the 2nd and 11th Legions. The best books that you can find on the Space Wolves are ironically linked to Traitor Primarchs, and you will see that this is going to be a recurring trend. The best books are on the Traitor Legions. Prospero Burns, also written by Dan Abnett, what a surprise, and Wolf's Bane are two of the best books that are related to Leman Russ, even though that they are not his best books, not his main book. Ferrus Manus is the 5th Primarch to be recovered. He landed on Metuta, which is at the other side of the Oculus Malefica. It's the Eye of Terror. Initially, his legion was named the Stormwalkers. They became the Iron Hands after they met their Primarchs. The books on the Legion are not so great. Ironically, the best book related to Ferrus Magnus is the Emperor's Children book, Fulgrim, written by Graham McNeil. I will directly jump to Fulgrim because his story is directly linked to the Third Legion. So Fulgrim is the closest Primarch to Ferrus Magnus. Their tale is a tragedy. I will not talk too much about it. But the Third Legion, the Emperor's Children, obtained their title after making the ultimate sacrifice. So after the compliance, or shortly after the compliance of Luna, there was an uprising which damaged the gene stock that was located in Luna. So the Emperor's Children were by default afflicted by a pathogen that greatly reduced their numbers. It was the Blight. The remaining Emperor Children sacrificed their lives trying to save the Emperor in an attempt that was almost successful. Fulgrim's book, written by Graham McNeil, is probably one of the best in the entire Heresy. Angel Exterminatus is my personal favorite, even though that most consider mid-tier. But because of a specific interaction with Perturabo, I will not talk too much about it. I will not spoil too much. It's definitely one of my personal favorites. He landed on Chemos, which was not that far from Terra, especially compared to Nocturne, Macragge, or Nostromo. And the 7th Primarch of the 11th Legion was discovered shortly after Fulgrim. So we talked about the 2nd Primarch, we talked about the 7th Primarch, and these Primarchs actually spent more time with the Emperor and spent more time crusading in the Great Crusade than some of the Primarchs that we will talk about in this video. Their fate is obviously they were either purged or they committed a dishonorable action which resulted in their entire history by being deleted from the Imperial records. They are linked to Leman Russ, and this happened shortly after the Rangden genocide. So after this, there's only one point of confusion. I will jump directly to Vulcan. Vulcan landed on Nocturne. You will notice that his planet is further away than another Primarch that will be on the list. The initial name of his legion was the Dragon Warriors. They are the 18th Legion. They are the most human. It's my favorite legion. I know that I'm a Lizard fanboy, but they are the greatest craftsmen. Some people could argue that the Iron Hands are better, but in my opinion, the Salamanders are definitely at the top of the list when it comes to creating some of the best weapons in the Astartes. The books related to Vulcan are not that good, but there is definitely the Unremembered Empire that talked about the Alpha Legion, Guilliman, Sanguinius, and the Lion that could perhaps redeem his story. Let me jump directly to Rogaldorn. So I know that some of you might be Imperial Fist fanboys. The 7th Legion originates from Inuit, which is kind of close to Terra. Some of the best books linked to Rogaldorn: Praetorian of Dorn, written by John French, The Lightning Tower. The Lightning Tower is not really a book, but it gave a lot of information. It's a novella that gave a lot of information on the Emperor, the Alpha Legion, and some plot holes that were in the storyline. There's also the Death, but I will not talk too much about it. These are like the last books of the Heresy. And Rogaldorn's story begins technically at the help of the Primarchs. The 2nd Legion and the 11th Legion met their Primarchs before Dorn was even discovered. Rubuti Guilliman, Primarch of the 13th Legion, which was initially called the Warborn before becoming the Ultramarines, was recovered on Macragge. It's one of the furthest planets in the Imperium. If you see completely at the northeast of the map, you will find Nostromo. So The other Primarch that could be considered as the furthest is Conrad Kurz. We will not talk about him yet. So Roboute Guilliman is probably the most important Primarch in the current storyline in the Warhammer 40k. But in the Horus Heresy, his books were horrible. No Fear is probably one of the worst books. Yes, it is written also by Dan Abnett. But the plot hole of the main characters was just absurd. It had a redeeming point. I think that there was Captain Skal, which was a world eater loyalist that brought a different perspective to the story. But if I had Bleach right now, I would probably be washing my eyes. All the other books are mid, for the exception of Unremembered Empire when it comes to Roboute Guilliman. So now the last point of confusion, it's Magnus the Red. So if you notice, Prospero is extremely close to Terra. Magnus is the most powerful Primarch in the entire Imperium outside of the Emperor. He was in contact with the Emperor from the very beginning. So he might have met the Emperor maybe almost at the same time as Alpharius or as Horus. It's just that the Emperor knew that his position was secure. The Emperor beelined toward other Primarchs that might have been in a more precarious situation. So yes, his story is a tragic tale. He became a traitor because of what Horus did. Horus modified the orders that Leman Russ received, which resulted in the events of Prospero Burns, written by Dan Abnett. And Magnus ended up, despite being one of the Primarchs that was constantly in touch with the Emperor, becoming traitor. We have talked about half of the Primarchs, and we have talked about almost every single point of confusion. A lot of people will tell you that Horus was the first Primarch, Leman Russ was the second Primarch, which is not true. I will continue on the next video. I hope that this helped. If you have any opinion, any additional information that you would like to add, write it down in the comments. It was a pleasure to share that information with you. Have a wonderful day.